Thank you very much.
Up next is Knowing Me, Knowing You, using facial recognition in Power Apps by Kevin McDonnell. He is the solutions architect in CPS. So, Kevin, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much. Can I check you can hear me okay? It's coming through.
Yes.
Fantastic. So thank you, Martin. Great talk on AI Builder. So really good to bring these two AI sides together. I'm going to pick on one particular topic around the AI with Power Platform. That's the face recognition. But first, just a little bit about me. My name's Kevin McDonnell. As Ange said, I'm a solutions architect at CPS, and there I work in the modern workplace team, so covering all things across Microsoft 365 and plenty of Power Platform and little bits of Azure. I've done plenty of development over my time. Please do reach out on, you'll find my LinkedIn if you look for Kevin McDonnell SharePoint, at Kev McDonk on GitHub. I'm also the co-host of the Grey Hat Beard podcast. So search for us in your podcast provider by looking for Grey Hat Beard. Talk about all things modern workplace. First half, we talk about the news. Second half, we cover a particular subject and have plenty of guests on there as well. So do look us up. But we've only got half an hour, so let's get on to some of the cool stuff you can do with Power Platform. You've seen the AI Builder and the piece of that, which I think is absolutely brilliant. Love that you can get that from the AI Builder, but at quite a high cost, I think. But you can also get all these great connectors. So if you look in Flow and Power Apps, you'll see connectors in there. You can get the Bing search, so you can get your intelligent search with your organization. You can get language understanding and Q&A maker. So you can, Lewis is used a lot by bots, so you can get it to interpret the intentions that people have from their text, or you can try and answer their questions to point to FAQs in a nice, easy, guided way. Got text analytics, custom vision, some of the elements that Martin was talking about just now with AI Builder, be able to look and process sentiments, look at identifying objects as well. And you can either use the custom vision to put in your own images to recognize, or use computer vision, which would just generically recognize and identify what's going on in a picture. We'll cover the Face API a little bit shortly. You've got your Bing Maps, your content moderation. So if you've got sweary people in your organization and you want to kind of pull some of that content out, get your content moderation going and maybe giving them a nudge to be a little bit more polite. And I'll be honest, I am one of those people. I do try and restrain it as much as possible, but great to be able to have that and look at those different details. And they're all there as standard connectors in the Power Platform. Behind all of these, they're actually using Azure Cognitive Services, and there's a whole load of things around decision, language, speech, and vision that you can find out more about. Let's pop over to the webpage. To find out more about that, if you search for Azure Cognitive Services, it will take you at the top there. I'm clicking the add one just to charge Microsoft a little bit more money. Cheeky, I know. But you can see there, you get some details about the kind of things you can do. And those 4 pillars I mentioned, the decision, language, speech, and vision. You can see that on top of what you can get from Power Platform, you can get even more if you go down the cognitive services route. For example, the metrics advisor, you can monitor metrics and diagnose issues. Or if you look at speech, you can even get speaker recognition. So you can identify different people automatically. Now, you don't get all of these with the Power Platform. But if you go down the plain access to Azure Cognitive Services, you've got to think about authentication. You've got to think about your REST APIs. It's letting you go a bit further onto the developer side. If you're developers, there's so much you can do here, but there's a lot you can get from the Power Platform. Now, the one caveat I'd say, I mentioned when we talk about costs, it was great to see the price calculator that Martin showed for AI Builder. But it's quite expensive. That $500 per month, that unit can ramp up. Here you've got a lot more finite. And even if you're using these standard connectors, so you're not needing a premium license for it, you do need to get your Azure Cognitive Services. So you'll need to have someone who has an Azure subscription. You can get free ones, so you can go and play around for free. But you'll see that I've created here a resource for cognitive services. I'm actually reusing one I had for another app on there, again, using facial recognition. It's deciding to be slow, as it always is when you try and demo. There we go. So you can see it's very easy, and you'll see there's an entry here called keys and endpoint. And one of the things you'll need is the key. Now, I'm afraid I'm not going to show that screen because then you'll all have my key and start using up my Azure resources. I trust you all, but I know it's been recorded. So just in case, I'm not going to click on that and show the details there. But effectively, you click on that, it gives you like a 12-digit key, and then you can make use of that within your Power Platform. If you want to create a new one, let's just have a quick look. In the Azure portal, you can go to create a resource. Very simply, under AI and machine learning, there is Face. Or you could search for Face in there, but let's get started with the Face API there. You've got your subscription that you would have got set up, whether that's your free one or whether your organization or yourself has an existing one. You need to tie it to a resource group. So let's put in, for example, check my image license that I was working on. You need to think about the region. The one thing you need to consider here is, yes, you probably want the one closest to you, but some of the AI stuff is not available in all regions, and you'll see some of the details there. If you go back to the Azure Cognitive Services, looking at the details there, you can see which regions they are available in. You can then give it a name. Let's just give it a random name for here. You'll then see there's a pricing tier. Now, down here, you see I've got standard. But there's a little note above, hopefully you can read that. Let's just zoom in slightly, saying the free tier for this resource is already being used. So there is a free tier. I think we can view the pricing details on that. The free tier gives you 30,000 transactions per month. And you've got a limit of 20 transactions per minute. So if you want to try things out for a single subscription, you can get in and try things out on there. If you want more, you'll see that actually it's not too bad. So for every 1,000 transactions, it's $1. So it's not a massive cost. And certainly where AI Builder gives you that easy to use jump up, this gives you a much lower base of entry and allows you to scale and understand how much is actually going on. So a little bit more thinking about you need to do with your planning here, but a lot lower entry level to the costing on it as well. Let's go back to the slides. Where have they gone? There we are. So that's very nice, giving you an idea of the sort of things available. But if we go down the face recognition, what can you actually do with it? Now, this demo came up from last year. It was Ignite the Tour over in London, and Don Osaka was there and challenged everyone to go and create a Power App. And I'm a bit of a sucker. For those who've seen Back to the Future, I can imagine if someone called me chicken, I'd be jumping and doing that racing on there. Just going to turn off my camera so I can put the camera on here. So I took that challenge and I was thinking about what would be useful. I was looking a lot at AI and cognitive services at the time. So I thought something with face recognition would be good. And there were lots of MVPs and great people around, and it's often be interesting to be able to take a photo of them and show them their tweets. So that's exactly what I created. I'm actually going to spoof it slightly because I'm going to use my face in a minute. So I have here a picture of my grey hat beard co-host, Alan Erdley. And if I click on the camera there, so I've just done a click, you'll see the dots are spinning across the top. And it's recognised Al from that photo. It's I've stored his Twitter name, and it's pulling out his details of his tweets. So you can see the tweets he's put together. In fact, he was tweeting me just earlier, which is lovely to see. And I can even click on About. So this is just using Flow to, using the Twitter connector to pull back tweets from there. So nice and easy. Haven't had to work with any APIs. Very simple to pull together. I can do a bit more. I'm not going to click on it. Takes a bit of time. Martin was talking about the sentiment analytics. I've also got text analytics on there. So all these tweets, I'm going to come back and show later, but you can click on that and it will pull out the key phrases and key entities within there as well. But let's give an idea. I can get to the list of people here. I can add on people. So let's add myself in there. So Kevin McDonnell. I'll add my Twitter handle in there at Kev McDonk. I'll click and take a photo. Hello. It was a slightly crazed photo there. And you can see that I've overlaid onto that exactly where it's recognized the face. So it's identified the single face. And if they're multiple, it will be able to tag that as well. If I save that, it will give me a list of the people on there. one of the things that makes it better is if you train it with more and more photos. So I can go in here and add some more photos as well. Maybe a slightly less mad one that time, and add another one of so a little bit of a sad one, get my pout going on there. You can load it up with a few photos. You know, you might want to take some from, you might have seen there the ability to tap and upload of photos in there as well. But given all that, I can then go through, click on my face, moment of truth in any demo to see if things are working today. And see if you can actually pull back my tweets. Fantastic. So there I've gone, brand new, set up a new person, taken a few photos of them. Now every time I take a photo, I can get their details from that. How does that work behind the scenes? With the face connector, you can detect faces, so it will recognize faces regardless of who they are. You then got some phrases in here which may not make sense initially. You've got things like a person group. Is exactly what it says. It's a group of people that you load into there. And then you've got an each individual person. You can also have a face list. So if you want a group of specific faces, you can load in there. Generally, I've found I've worked with the person group and persons and added faces to those. Now, this may not be making sense. I'll be honest, as I went through this, the kind of getting your head around the flow that you need to get together was the trickiest thing. So if we talk about the first step, you need to add a person, and that's going up to the Face API, calling that Face connector. You add a person in there and you put the details within that. You then take a photo of their face and add a person face assigned to that person, and you can have multiple faces for there. So you might want to add more faces for that person. So sorry, let's turn my camera back on. So you can take that photo, it will detect a face from that photo and adds that person face to that person. So you can start to build up more of a model of who that person is. And then when we come to the next bit, if you want to see if someone matches, you need to get a group of people together. So you wouldn't just add one person. You can then take a photo, detect that face, and then loop through those group of people to see if it matches who that person is. Now, let's go into a bit of code. Well, it's low code, not real code. Don't worry, we're just going into Power Apps. I'm going to start with the simple case of adding the person here. And I'm using my camera, so it won't show up at the moment. If I look at the sorry, it's not the on select on there. I'll keep getting that wrong. So when I click on the camera, that will store that photo. When I click on save on the on connect, you can see hopefully that it's clearing and storing in the current person. And I'm calling the Face API function there with create person. As part of that, I've got to create a person group ID, and I'm just calling mine show their tweets. I've got an input. Now, I know it's not best practice just to call it text input. I apologize hugely for being lazy and not doing that. Please don't call your things text input one. Don't be like me. It's a bad thing to be. But otherwise, you can see I'm picking text input one, which is actually the name that I've got there. So it's assigning my name for that person in the Face API. You can also add a set of other data. So if you wanted to store more information in that Face API to a certain degree, you know, you wouldn't make it a full database, but you can store details against that person, such as this case, I'm also storing the Twitter handle all up there in the API. And then that's putting it into a collection of current person. Next, I'm adding that person face. So I'm taking that person ID from the Face API I've just created, and then it's getting that image on there. I've actually uploaded that image, and I'll come on to that in a minute, and got that share link. So it's got the link to that image. First big caveat, and I'm going to come back to this a bit later. When you do have that Face API, when you're processing that image, it needs to be in a public URL. So it needs to be available and with anonymous, no authentication. That is my one caveat. I'll come up to a little bit later on to a few things you can do to work around that. Once it's added that person face, I add that person's ID, title and Twitter handle into Tweet People, which is just a SharePoint list. I'm not going to go into CDS or Dataverse versus SharePoint at this stage. I'm using SharePoint here. It's a quick, simple demo. It works. think about what you do need to use depending on your requirement. But you can see here I've got the ID of that person for the Face API. I've got the Twitter handle and things there. And then we navigate to the people screen. If I go through and have a look at the screen for adding person face, here when I click on the camera, it's actually triggering things. So it's storing the photo into a local image variable. In this case, I'm calling upload share their link and share their link. Not the catchiest title, I'll give you that. But if we go down and probably should have named these better, here you can see it's actually calling a flow. And if we go and have a look at this simple flow, I mentioned that I was uploading that image. That's what this flow does. So it retrieves the image content and image name that's been created by the Power App, and that comes through in the trigger. I'm then doing a compose on here. Let's bring that up. And that's doing a base 64 to binary. It's calling that function from the Power Automate expression. If you don't know what that means, don't worry. If you Google uploading images into using Power Automate, you'll see this mentioned all the time. What it does is it converts base 64 to binary. That's all you really need to know. It means that you can store the image effectively. Do go and read up on more about it. There's plenty of information out there, but it is just one of the things you need to do to convert that format, because then I'm saving that into OneDrive. Excuse me. So I'm saving it into a particular path. You see I've got that file name there that's coming from the Power Automate call, and then I've got the file contents, which is that conversion to binary. I'm then creating a share link. So you can create a link directly to that image. You can see I've got the ID from the created file. I'm setting the link type to direct. I could do view, edit, or direct, but I want this to be able to not go through and authenticate or do anything on there. I just want direct access for anonymous on there. And then it's going to return the details for that share link back to it. If we go back to the Power Automate, once it's got that share link, again, it's calling the Face API on that link for the image and actually detecting the faces from there. And then it's adding that the face it's found. It just picks the first one and adds that against the selected person. So you can start to build up those Face APIs within there. Final step, if we go to the home screen and have a look at the on select on the kind of main camera parts, you'll see we're doing a similar thing. We're getting the local image for the camera and we're calling a Power App, which I'll show in a sec. And then we're going and looking up that person based on what's returned. So if we go and have a look at that Power App, it's initializing a few variables. Again, we're passing the image name and content to that. Again, I'm doing that base 64 to binary. I've been a bit nicer here in naming things, creating that file and creating a share link to that. We then get the list of people that I'm holding in SharePoints. And here we get onto the Face API. So here we're detecting that faces, and you can see that the only thing it receives is that web URL, that publicly facing image that needs to go through. One of the things that gets me about this, I'd love to be able to stream an image to this, so I could just put that binary into that. And you can actually do that from the API. So if you go into Azure Cognitive Services, you use the REST interface, you can actually do it from there, but it's not available with this Face API connector. You'll also notice that this is in preview. I saw there were some questions during Marcin's talk about when things go from preview to GA. This has been in preview since I first worked on this app about a year ago, and I think it's been in for a while there since. So there is a certain element there you may be looking at whether this will change. I hope it will change, because I hope you'll have the ability to stream that binary content into there without having to put a public facing image out there. What I have done with this in the past, if you have a premium license for Power Apps, it's not too hard to create a custom connector that wraps around the Azure Cognitive Services REST API, and therefore you can build your own connector where you can pass in that binary, and that works. But the big caveat, that then requires a premium license. So you're suddenly jumping a little bit in terms of your cost and entry point to that. But this will detect the faces. For each of those faces it finds, it's going to loop through all the people I've got in my Twitter list, and then try and find a matching person from that face, from the list. And if it finds someone is identical, then it's going to add to an array of the found people and the Twitter handles. And then it's going to pass those back to the Power App, which will then show their tweets from there. I'm just going to pick up, show what one of them looks like. You can see I've done a few runs from the talk here. If we drill down to the detect faces, I love looking at this because it doesn't actually upload that image to, sorry, it doesn't store that image when it uploads it to the Face API. What it does is interpret that image and it pulls out details. So you can see here, like the faced rectangle, the top left and width, it kind of positions where that face is on the screen. And that's how I've been able to draw that picture on there. It works out where the pupils are. It works out where the nose tip is, the mouth, the left-hand side of the mouth is, the right-hand side, the eyebrows. So it never actually stores that image. It just stores the definition of that image up in the Face API. So you can go and look and sort of compare, who's got the widest eyes and things like that. So you could pull that data and things like that in there. And you've got all these different points, and that's how it defines a face, not through storing that actual image itself. And it just, I noticed down the bottom, also picks up whether you've got glasses. Looks like there, it rates your moustache, beard and sideburns. I apologise, I haven't shaved today. So it's got me as 0.1 instead of 0.0. And it's got me a little bit older than I am, which I'm a little upset by, but it's early morning and I'm feeling a bit tired. So hopefully that's why. But you can see there some of the details that you can get through from that Face API. Moving a little bit, I want to talk a bit about ethics. I mentioned there that it doesn't actually, when you upload that image, it doesn't store that image against the Face API, but you are storing that image. So I've got mine in OneDrive. You need to think about, is it okay to share that image? My example of talking about Ignite, seeing lots of people around, I shouldn't just be taking photos of random people and storing that image on my OneDrive. That is not ethical. That is not the right thing to do. With GDPR, if you're working with any European countries and plenty of other plenty of other reasons about storing data, you need to think about that. And even if you delete that image straight away, you use it to process, get the face details and then remove it down, you're still storing a fair bit of definition. I've got a name I've uploaded against a person, that's put an estimated age, it's pulled out the position of my face, whether I wear glasses. There is quite a bit of personal information. So make sure that you're only storing that for as long as you need to store it. And there is a good reason for storing it there. There are plenty of articles out there on the ethics of AI that Microsoft puts out there to consider whether you're doing the right thing. And I think Microsoft is doing a great job about sharing that. So please, when you're doing this with facial recognition, make sure you're thinking about doing the ethical thing with the data as well. Once you have thought about that, some of the other things you could do. This really was a play app. I don't see this as a serious app that I'd use live particularly, but there are plenty of options for using it. For example, you could have a registration app, whether that's people arriving for a larger meeting within your organization. So you have photos of them, you're okay to store photos. You could take their photo as they come in and say, yep, come in, you're invited. Yep, come in, you're invited, without having to go and look up against the name and ask people. It's a faster, less intrusive way of doing that to people. Or maybe people are arriving at your office and you want to register them there. You could take their photo, and if they've been there before, it should hopefully recognize them and pull out their details without pulling that up. You can have, if people are registering for a meal at an event, then you could assign their face against what their food was. So take a photo and remind people what it was they were eating. I used to live in Singapore, spent 4 years out in Singapore, absolutely love the place. And I know how important food is to many of you. So I thought I'd make sure I included that one in there. And making sure you get the right food is absolutely important as well. Again, on a more serious note, think about desk locators. So rather than come in, have a screen that points towards your desk, you could have a large Power App on a big touch screen that could take a photo and show you a map to where your desk is. So you could use that recognition of there. I think in summary, it's an easier way to get someone's details rather than have to go and jump around and ask people and get them to type something in. So in summary, you've got that easy use of AI. There's no need to learn about machine learning. There's no need to ramp up all these very powerful servers to process lots of images. Microsoft is taking the pain for you. And it's even wrapped over those Azure Content Services APIs, which aren't too bad, but they are technical. They're APIs. You can now use connectors as well. And it's a standard connector pricing, and it's not even the AI builder pricing. You've got that per use within Azure, so you've got pretty fine control over how much you're going to take, and you've got a very low entry point to actually getting up and trying this out. And you can also make use of Power Automate and flows to process that content. I showed both Power Automate and Flow to sort of show that you can do it in both ways. If what I found easier with putting in Power Automate is you can see each step. So if anything's gone wrong, I can see what that face API, I can see if things have been detected. Versus Power Automate, where you've just got that big long versus Power App, where you've got that big long text. So I've tended to try and use things in Power Automate more from that. Otherwise, please, if you've got any questions, please put them in there. Otherwise, at Kev McDonk, do give Grey Hat Beard a listen. I'll open up to any questions we've got there, and please also remind you to fill out the survey, win some prizes. We do love a good prize. So there's a question there from Amos. Does the Face API service distinguish between a real person's face and a photograph? No. I think is the honest answer to that. I think you saw that I recognized Al from taking his photo. So if you're thinking about using this for security purposes, I would not use as is. If you really want to distinguish, just being able to do it from a camera is very hard to do. And this is why Microsoft Windows Hello requires that it has infrared within there, so it can get depth perception as well to be able to do that facial recognition. So the Face API service as is doesn't particularly recognize that. Whether you could use object detection, so where I had the camera in there and I obviously had a background behind, it may be able to recognize that there's a camera in there as well. But if you zoomed in all the way, then you're not going to get quite so much from there. So unfortunately, no, it wouldn't get a difference between the whether it's a real person or a photograph. Any other questions, either on chat or feel free to unmute and ask a question. As I say, if you do think of any questions later, please send me a tweet at Kev McDonk or LinkedIn Kev McDonnell. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of the day. I think you have up next Goloknath Mishra talking about Power Automate versus RPA market, which I'm going to carry on listening to while I have a bit of breakfast. But otherwise, enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you very much. Say hello to Singapore for me, because I do miss it greatly.
Thank you so much, Kevin. We will prepare the Hainanese with chili sauce if we come here again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much.